Now, recently you might have seen a video go up on WhatCulture Gaming where I was talking to Tommy Miller, an ex-Ubisoft developer now turned indie game maestro, about the trials and tribulations of the video game industry. And today I'm going to highlight some of his thoughts that he had on being a developer and getting feedback from the community, which led him, his team, and others within the community to throw their hands up in the air and just say, I wish you understood what we're going through over here. So let's take a look at them as I bring Tommy's words to life. As I'm Jules, this is WhatCulture.com, and these are 10 things video game developers wish you understood better. Number 10, artists don't fix netcode. Now I know that you're probably going to be saying something like, well, yeah, obviously, everyone knows that, right? Well, you'd think so, wouldn't you? But time and time again, individual developers with absolutely nothing to do with the feature or system in question will receive torrents of caustic hatred for something that they, can't do anything about. Most recently, one of Tommy's colleagues received a private message on Twitter which read, "Stop posting about your cat and get your online fixed." Now, to be clear, this person in question was a vehicle artist. Of course, you'd be forgiven for thinking this is more of an issue of common sense as opposed to a gamer thing, but this occurs very frequently, with a large number of people in the community regaling others with their own tales of gamers who are shouting at me to do something that I have no clue about. Now think of it like this, you wouldn't scream at a physiotherapist to hurry up and administer your anesthetic, would you? Nor would you yell at a website designer to help you hack into the Pentagon. And even giving the benefit of the doubt and imagining a hypothetical situation where we did sit right next to the online folks, do you think that we're going to look at this and think, oh yeah, God, Frank, the online coder really needs to see this cruel insult because that'll make him work even harder? In summary, specialist titles aren't just there for show. Number 9, most of us do care about fan feedback, but it's a double-edged sword. So Tommy wanted me to make this crystal clear that developers do actually try to read and take on board all of the grievances and feedback that fans have. All developers are creatives, and creatives are a passionate bunch. They want to make sure that you love what they make, and if you don't love what they make, they want to know why and try to find feasible and practical solutions to try and please as many people as possible within the community. But this already raises several problems, because gamers rarely agree between one another, so obviously people want different things. And sometimes the things people ask for are impractical or impossible within the parameters of the game. Or the developers have already tried what you've suggested and it just didn't work. It's like having 3 kids asking if they want fish fingers for dinner, and one says, yes, but with curly fries, another says, I want you to bake a chocolate cake, and another just says the word dump truck over and over again. So what inevitably happens is that developers build a happy medium which pleases both the in-house designers and attempts to address the whole community's suggestions at once. But usually that also comes with a ton of hate mail with the header of nobody even asked for that. I tell you can't please them all, right? Number 8. Developers aren't as well paid as you think. Now, to be fair, this comes with a rather large asterisk here. Seniors, leads, and management are paid quite handsomely, and those eye-watering salaries are often the ones that get referenced when referring to game development pay. But here's the question, what about literally everybody else? Well, here in the United Kingdom, game developers are paid meagerly when compared to many other regions, such as the United States or mainland European countries. Starting with support staff, administrative assistants, and quality assurance, it's not unheard of to be paid around minimum wage, and according to some QA reports, in some studios they were barely getting £14,000 per annum. As any artist or designer, you can expect to start at around £16,000 to £18,000 per annum at a graduate or entry level, going up in steps as you progress. Programmers typically earn more due to the desirability and specialist nature of their jobs. If you've spent 4 to 6 years at university to get qualifications that are required to become a game developer, these kinds of salaries can be, rather deflating to the point that many defect to web design or alternative media. However, the ever-present passion power of video games is often enough to make new graduates disregard poor pay in exchange for working on high-profile IPs. Of course, this isn't the same across all studios. Some endeavour to compensate staff much more relative to their skill sets, and these are often the ones with the fewest changeovers or staff quits. Tommy told me that he held salaries of everywhere between £18,500 per year through to £36,000 per annum as an artist. And yes, the spectrum really is that wide. When CEOs are taking home tens of millions, it's a rather sobering fact that, as a developer, you'll likely face many hard years before getting that full-size basement arcade. Number 7. Games do exist to make money, but developers have next to zero say in corporate decisions. You sold out! You sold out! This game is doing shady microtransactions, how could you? To be fair, I'm not gonna lie, I've yelled that at video game developers and publishers alike. But Tommy was quick to correct me by saying, well, duh, of course they're out to make money. But also, the development team and publishing team, and by extension the financial team, may be a perfect symbiotic pairing. But that also means that both have agency to work to their respective specialisms. Development teams rarely get much of a say in how their game will be sold, how it's marketed, or outwardly depicted, especially when the publisher has placed hundreds of millions of pounds into the project. Developers, obviously, develop the product. They don't sell the product. Why get angry at the dude at Burger King who made your Whopper for how expensive the burgers in question are? What are the chances that he's going to be like, oh god, you caught me, I'm actually the secret millionaire CEO of Burger King and you're right, the burgers are too expensive and the chips aren't even that good. Glibness aside, games do exist to make money. Even if created with some altruistic love of art, they have to sell in order to spread that message to the masses and to keep all the developers actually in jobs. So, in short, Tommy asks, do not blame them for the legendary character skin costing $10 or more. They just made the damn thing. Number 6. Lazy devs do not actually exist. So Tommy was telling me that in his 15 plus years working across several studios, that he was yet to find a single lazy developer. In fact, the problem is quite frequently the opposite. Whether your specialism is programming, design, art, or otherwise, people in the games industry frequently find themselves overworking by default. Tommy told me that he was personally caught in a trap of his regular hours creeping up and over a protracted period of difficult work, and before he realized it, the usual day was around 13 to 14 hours. And the worst part is, even now, there's a presumption that this will be the norm, and nobody raises an eyebrow at someone sleeping at their desk. In an industry where it's no secret that overexertion and overworking is rife, it is a baffling choice to still use the phrase lazy devs. Number 5. Game development has an ongoing mental health crisis. Now, I think that there's an assumption that just because you're sat at a desk working in games, that somehow it's a triviality, it's easy peasy. Yet the percentage of mental and physical illness in game development jobs is shockingly high, with a recent industry census noting as many as 40% suffering some form of mental illness. Between the notoriously long hours, the constantly high expectations, and seemingly perpetual onslaught from alleged fans who bypass the game simply to insult and berate the individual, it's not impossible to conceive of reasons why game development has one of the highest percentages of mental health sufferers amongst all professions. And when Tommy told me about the people that he knew that suffer from depression, agoraphobia, social phobias, and anxiety, but what isn't talked about enough is how these conditions tend to avalanche into physical maladies. For example, Tommy overworked to the point where he started missing all of his meals. This in turn became anorexia, which exacerbated his brittle bone disease. And that's serious stuff. They say that stress is the killer, but that isn't the half of it. With enough tormenting and outside cruelties, your inner stresses can quite easily become outer crises. Number 4. COVID-19 actually had a major upside for most developers. Now, let me preface this by saying this is not making light of how devastating COVID-19 has been to the UK and the rest of the world. Far from it. COVID is a big stinky shit and nobody liked it. But if there was any upside to emerge from the smoking rubble for game development, it would be the newfound acceptance and pragmatism of working out of the studio. Up until a few years ago, many studios were extremely militant about studio culture. In a lot of ways, it was kind of oxymoronic. You had to muster up infinite creativity, but only within the confines of your tiny box. When you left the studio, the art tap had to be turned off. No flash drives would be allowed in the building unless officially okayed, and you weren't even allowed to sketch up ideas at home for fear that some Reddit ninja would swoop in, garrote you, and then upload them. Now, however, most studios offer remote or hybrid working options, remote drives that are secured via proprietary software sets, and special incentives to come visit the studio only when necessary. And instead of considering the measures temporary, a lot of studios have noticed an uptick in productivity, so have just kept providing the option permanently. Number 3. Devs don't keep secrets from you for fun, it's actually so that they don't get fired. Now, if you've been following gaming news recently, you'll have likely been reading about the severe repercussions of signing and subsequently breaking an NDA. Now, to those of you not aware, A non-disclosure agreement is a contract that a visiting party will sign as a promise not to reveal the things that you've seen whilst visiting. At a game studio, the most likely thing that you'll see is an in-development prototype or partially completed build of a game currently in development, but it also might extend to details about the studio or the developers within it. The NDA will outline the things that you can discuss freely as well and include multiple disclaimers, so there's no doubt what you're signing. And let me just tell you, breaking an NDA is an extremely serious offense. If developers leak information, they'll be extremely lucky to be only fired on the spot and blacklisted for life as a game developer to avoid, because the maximum penalty that can be incurred is all calculated and assumed damage to the product and studio reputation. What this means is, if studio management believe leaking this information has completely damaged hype in the run-up to the product's official marketing, they can, hypothetically, sue the leaker for the cost of all assumed lost revenue, which could be millions. So the next time that you're wondering why the devs don't tell you anything, it's because they like having jobs, freedom, and or some money for the rest of their lives. Number 2, devs largely are all friends, and there's no real studio rivalries. This year's Call of Duty got an 8 out of 10, and Battlefield only got a 7. They must be fuming right now. Now, let's just get this out of the way. Tommy told me that he has no clue why the gaming internet in general seems so fueled by drama and negativity. But you know what? Social media as a whole is practically perpetuated by it, because people are far more likely to interact with negative sentiments than to add to a positive one. So trolls and the like will have to sleep uneasily in their moss and Dorito covered bed pits to learn that game developers by and large all kind of like each other. Genuine studio rivalries are really quite rare, and in those extremely uncommon instances that feuds do occur and persist, they're looked upon by other studios like a drunk uncle at a wedding. Partial second-hand embarrassment and partial cat-like readiness to quash the impending fallout when they decide to ruin it for everyone else. And this is partly down to the industry veterans living in something of a small world. Tommy told me that he's personally worked with hundreds of extremely talented developers expecting to move on and never see them again, yet time and time again, they ended up working together. It makes things infinitely more smooth and enjoyable just to be mates with everyone. And number 1, devs are also gamers, and more importantly, human beings. Now, it's sad that this is both number 1, but also kind of a necessary thing to write. Most gamers are really nice people, or at least the vast majority are, but like a few drops of Marmite in your tea, just a tiny bit of something can really taint something else amazing. In recent years, the vitriol towards game developers has become something way more ubiquitous, most likely due to the methods of connection growing. Devs are interconnected, they're always on, they're always online. They visit the same sites as you do and play on all of the same platforms that you do because, shock horror, they are just like you. They're people, yet increasingly with every YouTuber controversy, with every game leak, with every tiny hole in the sofa being repeatedly picked until it's a crater, developers are often treated as some sort of alien race that don't try to understand or even care. And this alienation, this demonization, makes it easy to hate, easy to attack. I mean, why wouldn't you hate a force that seems to create and not care? Ostensibly, the media paints developers as the ones running the show, and therefore are also painted as ruining the thing you love. But it's nonsense. They're just people, just gamers who happen to work on video games, and that's it. They're not some mythical race, not some hostile foreign nation. And it comes down to this: if you wouldn't say it to somebody on the street, why the hell would you say it online to somebody else? And if you wouldn't say it to a fellow gamer you've never met, then why would you say it to the dev, a fellow gamer that you've never met? And there we go, my friends. Those were 10 things video game developers wish you understood better. I hope that you enjoyed that, and I just want to thank Tommy as well for having these deep and insightful chats with us. It really is a pleasure, my friend. And you can go follow Tommy Miller and all of his works by using the social media links that should be on screen right now, my friends, or at least down in the video description below. As always, I've been Jules. You can go follow me over on Twitter at RetroJ, but the O is a 0, or you can swing by Instagram where it's the same handle, RetroJ, but the O is a 0. Hope to see you over there, my friends. But before I go, I just want to echo Tommy's message of positivity here, of going out there with love in your heart instead of hate, to treat your neighbor as you should treat yourself, and that is with love and respect. They deserve all of those good things in life as well as you do, because, as Tommy mentioned, we're all human, and the only way we're going to get through this crazy thing called life is together as one. So big love to you and your neighbor, my friend. Now go out there and smash it. As always, I've been Jules. You have been awesome. Never forget that, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.